My 38M wife, 36F, of 12 years cheated on me, but karma caught up with her in a way I never expected. Hi everyone, I've been lurking here for a while but never thought I'd be the one posting. This is long, but I'll try to keep it as concise as possible because it's been eating me up inside. I'd really appreciate any advice on how to move forward. My wife, Rachel, 36F, and I, 38M, have been together for 14 years, married for 12. We have 2 kids, Jake, 10M, and Emily, 7F. I thought we had a solid relationship. Nothing perfect, of course, but we always managed to work through our differences. We had trust, or so I believed. Over the years, Rachel has always been a social butterfly. She has a lot of friends and attends a ton of social events, girls' nights, brunches, you name it. I've never been the jealous type, so I didn't mind her having a life outside of our marriage. I work in IT and have a more introverted personality, but I always encouraged her to enjoy herself. About 8 months ago, Rachel started acting off. She was glued to her phone constantly, laughing at texts, and guarding it like it was a nuclear code. When I asked who she was texting, she'd brush it off with, just the girls from yoga. She also started going out more frequently, sometimes coming home well past midnight. When I'd ask why she was so late, she'd say things like, "We just lost track of time," or, "You know how girls get when wine's involved." At first, I told myself I was overthinking it, but the gut feeling wouldn't go away. One night, Rachel went to girls' night as usual, but she left her Apple Watch charging in the bedroom. She's usually glued to it, so that struck me as odd. I wasn't trying to snoop, but a notification popped up, and my heart sank. "I can't wait to see you tonight, gorgeous." Same time, same place. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I scrolled through their conversation and found months' worth of messages, explicit ones. My wife wasn't at yoga or with her friends. She was meeting this guy. I didn't confront her immediately because I wanted to be sure. Over the next week, I noticed patterns that aligned with the messages. She'd tell me she was going to yoga or out with friends, and her location would match up with a cheap motel across town. After gathering enough evidence, I couldn't hold it in anymore. One night, after the kids were asleep, I told her we needed to talk. I calmly showed her the screenshots from her watch and asked her to explain. At first, she denied it, calling me crazy and saying I'd misunderstood. But when I mentioned the motel, her face went pale. She broke down and confessed. She admitted to having an affair with Chris, a co-worker, for the past 6 months. She said it started innocently with harmless flirting but eventually escalated. She tried to justify it by claiming she felt unseen in our marriage and that Chris made her feel alive. I told her she didn't have the right to blame me for her choices. If she felt neglected, why didn't she come to me? Why didn't she suggest therapy or even separation? Instead, she chose betrayal. I told her I needed space and left to stay at my brother's place for a few days. Rachel begged for forgiveness, claiming she'd cut things off with Chris and wanted to work on our marriage. But I was done. The trust was gone, and I couldn't look at her the same way. The kids knew something was wrong, but we tried to shield them from the details. I filed for divorce a few weeks later. She moved into an apartment nearby, and we worked out a co-parenting schedule. Here's where things get interesting. About 3 months after our separation, Rachel reached out to me, sounding distraught. She wanted to talk in person, so I agreed, thinking it might be about the kids. When we met, she looked different. The confident, bubbly woman I'd known was replaced by someone who seemed frail and defeated. She confessed that her relationship with Chris had imploded spectacularly. Apparently, Chris wasn't the charming man she thought he was. He was stringing her along, promising her a future, but as soon as she left me, he ghosted her. Turns out, Chris was already married, and his wife found out about the affair. She confronted Rachel at work in front of their colleagues, exposing everything. Chris was fired for violating company policies, and Rachel's reputation took a massive hit. She was ostracized at work and eventually quit because the environment became unbearable. If that wasn't enough, Rachel's parents found out about the affair. They are very traditional and were furious with her for destroying our family. They sided with me, which made her feel even more isolated. Rachel begged me to reconsider the divorce, saying she realized her mistake and wanted to rebuild what we had. She claimed she'd do whatever it takes to fix things. I'm happier now. I've started therapy, joined a local hiking group, and even reconnected with old friends. I'm finally focusing on myself and the kids. I realize I deserve someone who respects and values me, not someone who only regrets their choices when it all falls apart. The divorce was finalized last month. We're co-parenting as best as we can, but our interactions are strictly about the kids. Rachel still tries to bring up the past, but I shut it down every time. Karma caught up with her, and while I don't take pleasure in her downfall, I can't say I feel sorry for her either. She made her choices, and now she has to live with the consequences. Update 1. Hey everyone. Thanks so much for the overwhelming support on my original post. I didn't expect it to resonate with so many people, but reading your comments has really helped me feel less alone. I wanted to share an update about how things have been going, especially with co-parenting. To put it bluntly, it's been rough. Rachel and I have a shared custody arrangement. She has the kids during the week while I get them on weekends. At first, I thought this would work fine, But Rachel's behavior has made it incredibly difficult. She's become overly clingy when it comes to the kids, and it feels like she's using them as a way to stay connected to me. For example, she'll constantly text me during my weekends with them. Did Emily eat enough? How's Jake doing with his math homework? Are you making sure they get to bed on time? At first, I chalked it up to her being an overly concerned mom, but it's gotten excessive. Last weekend, she even showed up unannounced at my house because she forgot to pack Jake's soccer cleats. I told her firmly that we need to respect each other's boundaries if co-parenting is going to work. She agreed, but I could tell she was upset. I think she's struggling to adjust to the reality of our new arrangement, but I can't let her use the kids as an excuse to insert herself into my life. On the bright side, the kids seem to be doing okay, all things considered. I've been making an effort to spend quality time with them, going to the park, movie nights, and just being present. It's not easy, but they are resilient, and I'm so proud of how they are handling all of this. Update 2. I honestly thought I was done dealing with Chris, but life has a way of throwing curveballs. A couple of weeks ago, I got a call from Rachel. Her tone was nervous, almost embarrassed. She told me that Chris had reached out to her out of the blue. Apparently, after his wife left him and took half of their shared assets, Chris decided Rachel was his one that got away. He showed up at her apartment, begging for another chance and saying he was ready to commit to her now that he was free. Rachel admitted that for a brief moment, she considered giving him another shot. She said she felt lonely and thought maybe they could start fresh now that their baggage was out in the open. But, surprise, surprise, Chris hadn't changed at all. Within days of reconnecting, Rachel discovered that he was still juggling multiple women and hadn't even finalized his divorce. Rachel cut him off again and called me to vent. She sounded genuinely broken, like she'd finally realized the magnitude of her poor choices. I didn't offer much sympathy. I told her that it wasn't my problem anymore and suggested she talk to a therapist if she needed someone to listen. To be honest, it was satisfying in a way. Karma had already done its thing, but seeing Chris face the consequences of his own actions, that was the cherry on top. Update 3. This will probably be my last update. I feel like I'm finally in a place where I can close this chapter of my life. A few months ago, I met someone through the hiking group I joined. Her name's Claire, 34F, and she's incredible, smart, funny, and genuinely kind. We've been taking things slow, but it feels natural and easy in a way I haven't felt in years. She knows about my past, and she's been nothing but supportive. The kids have met her a few times, just as a friend, and they seem to like her. I'm not rushing into anything serious, but it's nice to feel hopeful about the future. As for Rachel, she's still struggling. She's started therapy, which I think is a positive step, and she's even apologized to me again for everything. This time, it felt more sincere, not like she was trying to manipulate me, but like she was genuinely remorseful. I've forgiven her, not for her sake but for mine. Holding on to anger was only hurting me, and I needed to let it go to truly move forward. Life is far from perfect, but it's getting better. I'm learning to trust again, not just in relationships but in myself. For anyone going through something similar, just know it gets easier. Focus on yourself, surround yourself with people who care, and take it one step at a time.